Perhaps you remember a classic tune from an old forgotten rock band. Maybe they broke up into solo acts, stopped being relevant, or just lost the will to tour. If you then heard another band play that first band's signature tune, you may think they're doing an homage or a cover, which is fine. But if they don't admit as much when confronted with the observation, you may surmise they're trying to copy the first band without giving them due credit. Whether fans would even be turned off by this depends largely on whether or not people still love that first band. The analogy I'm drawing here is to modern science and organized religion behaving as if they're rival bands, which shouldn't be that surprising since they're both the solo acts from an even older band no one likes to mention, Alchemy. I'll get to how in a minute, but first, consider the following. Grab the nearest book you last bought. It can be any type. A textbook, a crime novel, one of the 20th century greats like Catch-22, or even a dictionary. Do you remember why you bought that book? Likely to be entertained or informed by the thought streams contained within. And if the author did his job, you will. But before that, entertain something else. How did that book come to be? Its pages were arranged for your reading ease, and much thought was given to the binding size and presentation. The ink and font were chosen to be pleasing to your eyes, aside from the content itself, which was edited for mistakes in style. There is no denying that intelligent, though debatable, thought went into creating it. Now, to give the same consideration to your hands holding that book, your arms, your torso, the orchestra of systems that make up your organs, the supercomputer behind your eyes, allowing you to decode the alphanumeric symbols into words. How could that supercomputer have also come from nothing? Modern evolutionary theory says we evolved from lower primates into the complex beings we are today, guided by an instruction manual called deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. But some questions persist. Like, which evolved first, the cardiovascular system or the blood that pumps through it? Did our pulmonary system evolve according to the specifications of our atmosphere or because the heart required it to function? And if so, how was such perfect synergy between the three systems achieved, and more importantly, when? Some will say the answer is DNA itself. DNA that is similar to this book you are holding. Both complex groupings of intentions, themes, and instructions compiled for a specific purpose. Though one is believed by secular science to have developed on its own, which is odd, because other instances of that don't share the same trait. For example, before humans learned to program computers, the language to do so had to first be created, which for some leads to the biggest question of all regarding DNA. Could it have really happened on its own? A sudden 1,000-page instruction manual when before there was nothing? And what are we to make of the millions of other life forms on Earth and their DNA? Life forms that appear to be made for the express purpose of sustaining our comfort and balance at the top of the food chain here. If you agree that book you were holding could not have come from nothing, then the natural questions are, did DNA have an intelligent designer? If so, whom or what? And what if the answer means the human experience has more meaning than modern science would like us to believe? If you think this is where I assert God did it, you would be wrong. Instead, I contend that the interpretation has more to do with perception than a specific divine source. DNA and all that comes from it is either formed from a series of cause and effect operations starting sometime after the Big Bang, or is nothing less than the divine instructions from an extra-dimensional source. And it's our perception of this that informs how spiritual our individual realities are. As you're watching this now, an innate sense of spirituality exists in you or it doesn't. But whether you came from a spiritual source or a complex set of mathematical operations, in all your complexity, could you really have come from nothing? Consider how to outwardly express any spirituality these days is often met with eye rolls, largely due to scientific advancement having conditioned us in the modern age to demand evidence, and having seen none to support a divine being creating us from dust, many have concluded that it has no basis in reality. Fair enough. After all, if evidence is required to imprison someone, why not also for faith in a creator? The problem is, this notion has left many now firmly in the realm of atheism without ever remembering having chosen to be there. But here again, we bump into perception. Perhaps we have an abundance of evidence pointing to an intelligent designer, but we have perceived it as something else. Or, perhaps more willfully, we have all chosen to ignore them. Because who really wants to entertain the moral implications to our lives if a heaven or hell really awaits us at the end of it? The natural sciences have told us that upon death, our bodies break down and are reabsorbed into the earth, that with enough time we revert to dust. The difference is, this is something we can actually verify and observe to be true. Intelligent design, however, first requires a bit of faith. But it's not alone in that anymore.